till now, whatever animals in kingdom Animalia we have studied, we were not knowing that they were animals. We were talking about insects, we were talking about starfishes, most of the marine animals, corals that we never knew were animals, we studied about that as well. Now, what we are going to study next is under Subphylum Vertebrata, actual animals. Now, all these are animals, but since your childhood, whenever you were asked that give an example of an animal, you would quote frog as an example, you would quote a fish as an example, you would also quote a mammal to be very specific as an example, but you never thought of quoting an echinoderm as an example of animals. This is the class where we are going to find those animals and see those higher animals which we actually consider as animals, or we considered as animals till now. Now we are very well aware of the 10 phylums we have studied till now. They were also animals because they suited the criteria for being an animal. Now moving to the Subphylum Vertebrata, we are going to talk about the fishes, we are going to talk about the amphibians, the reptiles and mammals, and one by one we are going to see that what are the class characteristics for those animals to be classified under whatever category they fall into. Now let's talk about the Subphylum Vertebrata. This is having lots of species. You see many beautiful things in the Subphylum Vertebrata. Let us see the characteristics what are responsible for classifying an organism in phylum Vertebrata. Because this is part of phylum Chordata, this is going to have notochord, and those 4 characteristics that we talk about. First is notochords are present in the embryo in adults and it is replaced by vertebral column. Okay, in vertebrata, the vertebrae would come and replace the notochord as we had talked about. The nerve cord is divided into brain and spinal cord. Now you see the complexity that is coming with each level as we are moving forward. The brain, that is part of the nerve cord, it is enclosed in a cranium. Cranium is one of the characteristics for classifying further superclasses. The body is divided into head, thorax and abdomen. You saw this classification in the case of insects as well, but over here you would see a proper classification. Take your own example. We also fall under this Vertebrata subphylum only. Body has 2 pairs of fins or limbs. The fins could be replaced by limbs. The gills, which are either present throughout the life or they would be replaced by lungs in the case of terrestrial vertebrates. Okay. Now these are the basic characteristics. We would come across these characteristics when we study about the classes which fall under Vertebrata. Now let us see the further classification. Vertebrata is divided into 2 divisions. First one is agnatha. This gnatha word is for jaws. Alright, jaws which would be embedded with teeth, to be very specific. Agnatha does not have jaw and it has single class, that is class Cyclostomata. It has more classes as well, but you have to refrain yourself from studying that. You only have to study about the cyclostomes which have the marine parasites which are present. We are going to study about that, and talking about those organisms which fall in division Gnathostomata, they are having jaws. Inside this division, we have a superclass, 2 superclasses. One superclass is of the Pisces, that is having the fishes. And when we talk about Pisces, the classification for the animals to fall into this superclass would be that they should bear fins. Depending on which type of fins are present, there are further 2 classes. One is chondrichthyes and other is osteichthyes. Now over here, this chondrichthyes is referring to those fishes which are having a cartilaginous skeleton, because chondri word is basically used for cartilage. So those fishes which have cartilaginous skeleton would be chondrichthyes, and those which have bony skeleton, they would have osteichthyes. And over here, whenever I am referring to the skeleton, it would be endoskeleton. Now talking about tetrapoda, another class is tetrapoda. Now tetra is for 4, poda is for, as we had in arthropoda, it was jointed appendages. Over here we are talking about 4 appendages that would be present. There are further 4 classes. One is amphibia. They also have 4 legs. Then there are reptiles, they also fall into tetrapoda. Then we have birds, that is class aves, and the last one is the class to which we people belong in the order primata. We don't go to the order level, is mammals. So we have class Mammalia as well, which is present over here. So this is what we have to understand about subphylum Vertebrata. Now let's talk about Agnatha, that is lacking jaws, those organisms, that is class Cyclostomata. Now when we come to class Cyclostomata, they are over here, it is subclass, certain authors consider it as subclass as well of superphylum. These are jawless fish that are only vertebrate parasites. You see, this is not a jaw, this is the main mouth that is responsible for sticking to the host. Now the example is hagfish that is living in salt water, they are exclusively marine. In the case of lampreys, they live in fresh water and they have a sucker like oral disc. This is which is being represented. You can see a fish over here, and this is parasitic, this Agnatha fish that is parasitic on this, have a sucker like oral disc with teeth that rasp the flesh. This part is going to have these are the teeth which are responsible for rasping the flesh and taking out the juices whichever are responsible for the growth of this particular parasite. Now over here we have example of hagfish, that is petromyzin. Okay, and you have to remember the larval stage, that is ammoseed. These two words are to be remembered, otherwise you have to remember the features, that they are going to be parasitic, they are going to be marine in the case of hagfish, and in the case of lampreys they are going to be staying in fresh water. They would be obligate parasites, ectoparasites. They would not go inside, they would be ectoparasites which feed on other organisms' digestive content, which would be nutritive fluid, as you can see over here. So this is all we have to study about Agnatha. Next what we study is the Gnathostomata, but before that have a review about this, that what we talked about Vertebrata, that was the subphylum. It had two divisions inside it. Those divisions, one was those which had jaws, that we talked about. Next we are going to talk about those which have the jaws.